Welcome to the 5th season of The Lost Journeys. The opening scene takes place in 1977 and has Pierre Chang waking up in his home here at the barracks. His real name was revealed to us before season 5 aired in a Comic-Con video.
Hello, my name is Dr. Marvin Candle and You know what? Forget it. No point in games anymore, right? If you're watching this now, you already know that my real name is Pierre Chang, and
Later in the season we'll learn why he's so grumpy this morning. He was up very late the day before when scientists from Ann Arbor arrived at the island. He does his morning routine. By the way, this giraffe over here was last seen at the Korean toy store in season 4. A repurposed prop. He will later leave this house, and look over here, this woman over here, is she Kate's roommate? Because this is, at this time and date, the house Kate was given a couple of days prior. Maybe she is, considering that there's 2 bedrooms in these houses. So did Kate have a new roommate? Or is this woman just calmly going around watering all the plants in front of the houses? Pierre Chang goes to another house to shoot the rotation film for The Arrow. I don't know which house it is exactly, so it could be anywhere. I've made it this one, so these 2 houses are not homes per se. This looks like a cozy recreation area with various books, which could be near the research laboratory next door, the one we saw last season. A Dharma worker rushes in. They will now get on one of the buses and travel out of the sonic barrier and towards the orchid. This scene will be revisited a little bit later in the season. He goes down the orchid, orders the crew not to drill any further into the wall. As I briefly explored in the season 4 finale, the construction crew made this vault on the side of the chamber instead of drilling further in. If we look at the map of the orchid, if they had gone straight ahead, they would actually hit the pocket of energy. And I believe that the frozen chamber is facing the orchid this way due to the sonar schematic over here, like this. So they built the vault on the side over here, so it's connected to the pocket of energy, but it's not drilled into it. The rest of the scene will play out in the variable, so we'll continue much later. Let's move to the present. When Ben turned the wheel, the island moved. However, certain characters moved back in time. So for the perspective of Richard, who knows about the time travelers, he expected this to happen. So when Locke disappeared, he knew that he went back in time. When these characters disappeared, it was only the others over here and the ones at the temple that weren't affected. And the wreckage of the freighter would continue to sink, and the numerous bodies would simply drift around. Additionally, we have Claire, who has been chilling in the cabin over here. The man in black likely came back to her after the freighter explosion. The others would then move along, maybe back to the temple without a leader, or just continue being the settler community. They will encounter Claire at some point, but that's a story for season 6. Now let's look at the time travelers. And let's zoom out a bit. They are now in 2001, more precisely after April, if we're gonna go by the Writer's Room timeline. If the island is no longer in the Pacific Ocean, it should be here someplace, not too far from Nigeria. Eko just saw his brother being dragged into a beechcraft that took place off from Nigeria. Since they used a beechcraft, they would likely land in another country in Africa, so maybe the beechcraft was going south. It's the first time shift. Locke goes up the hill, far up. I think he's gonna try to get as high as possible, so I believe he will trek for a while. All the way up here. Behind him is this curve over here and the rest of the island. Which is why I think he's up here. A plane comes by. The Nigerian beechcraft. There's technically a blooper here. Goldie is supposed to eject from the plane. However, there is a cut to Locke's face, so he might have done it very quickly and landed in the jungle. Locke is gonna run down there to check it out, and so will Ethan Rom. Ethan is probably somewhere in the jungle, since it takes a time to get from the barracks, and I'm not sure if they would even spot the plane from there. It's far away and blocked from the mountains. So Ethan is somewhere else.
What happened? What was that light?
We must have been inside the radius.
Daniel arrives on the beach with the Zodiac raft. The bewildered group will now go to the Swan Station while the rest of the camp will just stay back and try to make a fire. Jin is still in the ocean. Locke has arrived. Ethan shoots him, and then the flash of light happens. The time travelers jump in time, but let's look at it from the perspective of the others. The writers even commented on what Ethan did after this event.
They are being brought to these periods in time to accomplish very specific goals. You know, what is it that Locke is here to do? You know, is there any significance to him experiencing Ethan here? Did Locke seeing John Locke in this moment have any ramifications for the others? Did Ethan go running back to the other camp and basically say, I saw this guy, he had identified himself as John Locke, he had a scene with Albert, who knows? But we tried to design every one of these moments with great purpose.
I agree. I believe he went back and told Richard about this mysterious disappearing man. Richard might have even advised him not to tell this to Ben. Richard and Ethan would team up this year too, because the next thing on the agenda for both of them would be to leave the island. They would go to Miami to recruit Juliet. And later on, when Oceanic Flight 815 crash lands on the island, Ethan starts to spend some time with this mysterious disappearing man who one day will be the leader of the others.
What are you guys doing out in the jungle at night?
Best time to hunt. Ethan here has some experience. Spotted some tracks, look like they might be rabbit or some other rodent. What? I hunted with Ethan, I spent time with him, I never sensed anything off. But for everything that I know about hunting, tracking, whoever he is, he knows more.
It's the second time shift. It's dark outside and they are now in 2007, post Ajira landing, which means that at this point in time, Locke is alive here, and his dead body is at Hydra Island. Jin is still floating on a piece of wreckage. How crazy! For a brief moment, Sun, who had been mourning the death of Jin for the past 3 years, was on the island along with him, still badly bruised from the freighter explosion, and will be in the same timeline with him for just mere minutes. You see, it was during the second time shift when Man in Black Locke, Richard, Albert and Ben were trekking towards the Beechcraft. Therefore, the camp is back. It's fun that no one brings that up, since Rose, Bernard and a ton of other survivors didn't go to the Swan Station with Faraday, so they briefly saw the camp pop up before it disappeared again later in the next shift. Anyway, Faraday's group reached the Swan Station, which is still a crater. Locke goes inside the Beechcraft, and by the way, this is a CGI shot. I thought that was weird, but maybe they shot the interior and forgot to put in Yemi, or they didn't have the skeleton prop anymore, or they wanted to show the mechanics of Man in Black. Because remember, the last time we were inside the plane, Echo said that Yemi's corpse was gone, and now it's back. Looks like Man in Black trickery to me.
Richard, what is happening? What's happening is you're bleeding to death.
Richard pulls out the bullet. It's the third time shift. This one is still after April 2001, and it's so close to the previous one that you can still see smoke coming out of the Beechcraft, meaning that Ethan has just left this spot to go back to his camp. It could be like 15 minutes after the first time flash. The flash also illustrates that whatever you're holding on to will continue to travel, including the stuff from the original time flash, such as the Zodiac raft.
The hatch. It's back. I guess you haven't found it yet.
The group will try to open the back door, and now we've come to a situation we've explored in a previous Lost Journeys episode. As soon as the group head to the beach, Daniel Faraday will knock on the door and talk to Desmond, before everything flashes to a different time. But that's all for next week. Stay tuned, and if you haven't seen the previous videos or are keen on a rewatch, they're all available here on my YouTube channel. Stay tuned for more Lost Journeys.